to vices in the name of, let me teach them how it is done. Somebody will say, I'm taking my son, I want them to taste alcohol from my home. I want to be the one to show them how to do that. The intent, like you said, sometimes the intention is good, but the precedent that you're setting up or what you are introducing them to could unleash
other things.
And I'm using just alcohol as a basic, because it's legal, but it has a lot of ramifications that we deal with, consequences that we deal with, largely in a society. And there are things we could mitigate up against. And there are many other things. You see a mother teaching her young daughter to do makeup. The child is not of age yet, but in other areas, that is being described as distortion of self-image. You know, that's that tender age, you should be teaching them how to accept themselves as they are, live with themselves, and then later on, perhaps, when it is age appropriate. So my question is on age appropriateness. How do we bridge the gap between what we desire for our kids to know, and they should, because it is an existence of the world, and the tender age they're in at that time? Bearing in mind, we don't want to distort the self-image, the self-perception, and really not really just wanting them to fit in, because the fear of missing out is also another element that is bringing uniformity, and it takes away individualism. How do we find the balance?
Okay, so those are like three things you've said. So let me try and so the first one, in terms of introducing certain things. So what the research tells us is that for a lot of like mental health conditions, they sort of start in those teen years. The other thing that we are also getting to see from the research is that brain development goes all the way till age 24. Sasa tunaanza kusikia hata 28 inaweza extend kidogo, right? And so when you think about introducing some of those vices to a growing brain, you are actually setting them up for a lot of challenges. So one of the things I usually tell people is that, can we wait till at least the brain finishes developing? Then you can introduce all these things after. Of course, now, bearing in mind that we don't want the interference of these substances to what is supposed to be, the normal brain experience, normal brain growth. So I'm always very, very cautious when people are like, I want people to learn at least where I can teach them, because there are certain papers that were, that were published from the US and from Canada that were actually saying that when parents are more permissive, young people even drink even more. And so you have to be very cautious when you're introducing it from that perspective, because I see you don't have an issue with it. I'm likely to just continue to indulge. But then for the vast majority of young people, some will experiment and be done with it. Like let me speak for myself. I tasted alcohol. I was like, I don't get it.
This is not for me.
This is not for me. But and that was just in terms of experimentation, and found that this is not what I liked. And so thankfully for a lot of young people, what we have seen is that a lot of them just experiment and they are like, not for me. And we see that not just with alcohol, we see that with nicotine. When someone tries a vape or someone tries a nicotine pouch, and they're like, I don't get what the hype is. I cannot relate. I know there was an influencer who was like, I struggle with anxiety, and suddenly when I was on this pouch, my heart rate through the roof. Like I felt like I was having a panic attack. How is this enjoyable? So a lot of the young people will try and be like, I'm not going to continue with this. So what I usually tell people is, instead, teach them the right values. Teach them about balance. There are very many ways you can teach about moderation without having to expose someone to a vice. You can still be able to use things that are not going to be dangerous to their growth and their development. Understanding that young people, in terms of that brain development, are curious, they are experimental. In fact, that's why high school we were being taught all those complicated things in math and chemistry and all that stuff, because our brains could be able to gain that. Please, if if all of us were sitting in that class today, I can tell you for free,
Calculus.
the struggle would be real. Compared to somebody whose brain is still developing, they're still experimenting with different formula and doing all these different things and figuring out how it works. So why not leverage on that ability when you involve them in sports, when you involve them in certain extracurricular? You were talking about the creative space. Just having them just see what is the expanse of what they can be able to do with their creativity and learning balances within that rather than exposing them to vices. So, which goes back to like just the different reframing we do a lot of the times in the healthcare space. A lot of mental health care practitioners, shout out to all of them, who do a lot of this reframing so that, yes, Uncle Dennis B has the right intention, but we just have to sort of reframe and redirect it to bring out the best in this young person. So I don't know if that answers the two of the three things.
And Dr. you talked about transitions, which I feel in the circles that I'm in, those who have teenagers, they're really going through it. And sometimes, as you say, you have to extend grace to the parents. Sometimes you can feel overwhelmed because you took your child to school, you're being called, do you feel poor? You go take the child to the doctor, there's nothing wrong with them. Like, not even a cold. They're like, okay, what is going on? And it seems it's happening with a lot of